Welcome everyone to the Learning Circles, the new Brew Podcast, Learning Circles with Dr. Sandy. We're very fortunate today to have Ben Newsome from Fizzics. I've been a fan of his. I'm just actually trying to think for how long, and a long time, Ben. So I don't want to give away anything about your age, but a long time. But before we start, I would like to acknowledge that I'm in Young country, and we acknowledge Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people as the traditional owners throughout Australia, and acknowledge their continuing connection to land, waters and culture. We wish to pay our respects to their elders, past, present and emerging. What land are you country coming from, Jace?
I'm in Young as well.
And Jared's in Young as well. What about you, Ben?
I'm in Durham country in Western Sydney.
I know. That's where I met you. So I taught in Mount Druitt, but that's where I taught is actually probably another hour from where you're based with where you guys talk about to me all the time. So just tell us a bit about you, Ben. What got you into doing something like this? Well, who are you?
Fair enough. All right. So my name's Ben. I run a place called Fizzics Education, which cannot spell. Sorry, Fizzics, but the whole point is we're going to have a bit of fun with stuff. What do? I teach science, and been doing that. So I mean, time stamping this particular chat is it's the end of 2021. So for the last 17 years, we've been doing science outreach for many different places all over Eastern Australia, but also doing remote distance learning for the last a bit over 10 years around the globe. So it's really simple. I mean, sometimes I've just said maybe I just blow stuff up and kids enjoy it, but more importantly, it's linked to curriculum, and that's where it's an absolute pleasure to be involved with this sort of thing. And I get to see a lot of great schools, a lot of great classrooms, and some awesome teachers doing their thing, and it's really privileged to be involved.
Yeah, I want to ask you a question. What's been the most fun thing that you've done? Can be a fail.
Oh gosh,
can we just say that was like really like wow, that made my day as a teacher.
I'm going to go down weird for a moment, only because you mentioned it. I remember us having to get 700 kilograms of cornstarch to make corn flour to make a whole bunch of corn flour slime, and we had the Australian Wallabies run across it. It was a weird promotional day, and what I did,
rugby union.
Yeah, rugby union. Yeah, seriously. We had to do that. Did that. It was at the time. It was for a particular game. It never got aired on TV. It only got aired in stadium. But the idea was at the time, one of their sponsors was Castrol Edge, and their saying at the time was "strength under pressure." And their producer had this wild idea about multi-million-dollar ankles running across cornflower slime. That was a weird day. But I mean, I've been really lucky to do lots of cool things. I mean, I've been able to go visit a dinosaur museum in the middle of central Queensland and actually dig out dinosaur bones and help piece them together. I've been in school halls putting fireballs over principals' heads. I don't know. I have an interesting life, I suppose. It's been good fun.
It's awesome. So if you, as pre-service teachers, which is who we are, what would you recommend we do in terms of prac? And you might want to show us an experiment today as well. We've asked if maybe you might be a bit practical with us, because something to do with Skittles, I believe.
Yeah, we're totally going to do a Skittles experiment. In fact, though, there is definitely a lot of free resources on our website. And that got built out of people asking initially, how do I make a volcano that doesn't just do a sputtering mess? Like, how can I actually make it look like something that happens in Hawaii and whatnot? And so that grew over time. And now we have several hundred free science activities, and they all got variable testing in it, and they have pictures of the shopping list you need and the various pictures every single step that you could possibly need, plus why on earth does it work, and then links to further information, usually videos too. That's really powerful. And I know thanks very much, Jace, for allowing me to share screen. So I will quickly do that. For those people who aren't seeing a share screen right now, I'm just simply sharing the Fizzics Education website. No, I'm not, because there it is up there. So it has a heap of different categories. So whether it's kitchen chemistry, force and movement, you name it, it's in there. So I'm not going to make us all go through that for now, but certainly.
Your page,
Ben, can I just say something?
Go for it,
Can I just say something, Ben? I just seeing that website just then, I'm pretty sure I used one of your experiments for an assessment. The light the light's passing through, pouring light. I think the experiment was.
Oh yeah.
I think I got that, and used it for my assessment. I did an actual demonstration and made my own video of it. So
Right. I'm going to put myself on the spot in some ways. Jared, did it work?
yeah. Oh, it was crazy. It was unbelievable. And it even showed it in the video very well in my presentation. So yeah, it was fantastic, Ben. Like,
well, that's a really good experiment because that's a good example of a total internal reflection. So basically light bouncing around, right? So as the water pours out of the bottle, the light gets trapped. And why on earth would we care? I mean, eventually we have to think of that as teachers. Why would the student even bother to listen at this point? Because it's just a weird little trick, right? Well, it turns out that optic cable fibers, that's how light travels. It gets trapped inside. And that's why we can have bendy cables that go everywhere, all over the world. And the light doesn't attenuate too much, and we get to distribute, information at almost light speed. So weirdly, that very simple experiment. And if you're wondering what on earth Jared's actually talking about, seriously, get yourself a water bottle, wrap it in aluminium foil, aluminum for our friends in North America, wrap it in foil, and make sure that the base of your plastic water bottle is completely free of foil. And then make sure it's got water and just pour it into a tub at where it's really dark, and either shine a red laser so it's not too powerful, or a torch in the base of the bottle, and it'll come out of the water spout. Yeah, I haven't done that one, Jared, in a while.
Oh, it was a good fun. It was simple, it was fun and easy, and I could easily picture doing that in the classroom. That'd just be a very fun science subject. So I'm all for it. I love science. So I'm glad to be here talking to you, Ben. So I get some more of your wisdom of science.
Thanks for saying that. I mean, definitely, Sandy, we will do that Skittles experiment.
You want to do it now, or yeah?
Yeah, I reckon we can do it now. And it's probably a really good example. So I'm going to quickly. So on audio, if you're wondering what I'm doing,
Skittles ready to go.
Oh, you really are ready. I mean, half the problem with the Skittles experiment is the kids eat them all, right? Before you get going.
Okay, that's why they're not open yet.
Nice flavors you chose. I've chosen traditional flavors, by the way, today. So on audio, all I'm doing is just we're currently recording this through Zoom, so I'm just changing my camera to an overhead view, and my overhead view goes like that. And so currently the overhead view is showing a blue screen, and now my hand's sitting on the blue thing. So we are seeing from above. Great. Now I'm putting a white plate on top of the blue thing. The white plate has nothing in it. So if you're following along, get your plate. You can also pour in some water into your plate. Now the thing is, kids tend to honestly, they get a little bit liquids in kids. Tell them to go easy. Not just because you're worried about mess. You don't really need to have this incredibly full. All right. So we've got ourselves our water. Just normal tap water will do. Thanks. We don't need to be over the top in terms of temperature.
How you going? Because I don't trust me. I always spill everything.
Yeah.
I'm a kid you can't trust in any excursion or anything.
Yeah. So what I'm going to do now is I'm now adding 3 different Skittles towards the center of our plate. I'm going to put an orange one, a green one, and a red one into our water. Now, at this point, you just say to the kids, what's going to happen? What do you predict is going to happen? Because they should have that hypothesis at some point. They'll say, yeah, the colors are going to come out. And they're right. The colors do come out. I can see some green leaking out, orange leaking out, and red leaking out. But you've got to listen really, really carefully to the kids at this point, because you say, well, what's actually happening to the Skittles? And what they'll say often, especially if they're in the primary school area or early high school, actually adults do this too, it's melting. They say it's melting quite a lot. And the job of a science educator or any person teaching how the world works, as you watch this sort of colors leaking on out and you look at a hand sort of, hey, it's there. So we need to listen to the misconceptions. It's not melting. When we're dealing with melting, as much as it sounds like we're being pedantic, melting means adding heat to a substance and it changes from a solid and turns into a liquid. That's all it means.
Misconceptions rather than error. I like that word, misconception, because we use that in maths as well.
Oh yeah. Oh, totally. It's so important to really pick up those misconceptions. So they often will say melting all the time. No, it's dissolving. What we've done is we've put something that can break up in a liquid. And in this case, the food coloring is broken up. Now, at this point, whilst I've been talking away, Sandy, have you got what I've got on my plate where the colors have kind of met in the middle? It's formed like a Mercedes-Benz cross.
So I don't think, you won't be able to see it because it's clear, but I can see it from the angle. Yep.
Fantastic. All right, it's good. So I guess the question, I'm going to throw it to Jace, Jared, or Sandy, whoever would love to answer this. I feel like I'm putting you on the spot. Why aren't the colors mixing?
Surface tension.
Ooh.
Fair enough. What do you reckon, Jason? I'm going to throw it to you. It's like, oh, now I've got to answer something.
I wasn't expecting this today.
All right, Jared. Jason,
Now-
Oh,
I'm the same. No, I've got no idea.
I don't know. Is it? Oh, it sounds so stupid. Has it got something to do with like, I don't know. It's like oils mixing. Like I know there's probably no oil in it, but I've got that.
You're far closer than you might think. And actually, you really listen for our students to say that too, because they may feel uncomfortable when you throw them on the spot. And that's exactly what I've just done to both of you. But if you think about these three different Skittles, if you were in charge of the Skittle making factory, and you usually see kids' eyes light up at this point, what you wouldn't want to have all these different machines producing all these different Skittles because it's really expensive to have all these Skittles. The flavoring and the colors on the outside of the Skittle is put on there at the last moment. The vast majority of these Skittles are actually the same amount of sugar in them. It's the same concentration of sugar. Concentration, when you describe it to younger kids, is how much stuff is shoved in the space. Well, the amount of sugar in each of these Skittles is effectively the same. The colors are leaking outwards and they don't cross because they are the same concentration. Now, what we're going to do is get a sugar cube, pure sugar now. Now, if we put a pure sugar into the center of our tricolor rainbow, so to speak, you see water rush straight up into our sugar cube. But now it's time for patience for the kids again. What will happen next to the sugar cube? Now, this is when you start listening for things. A lot of the kids will often say the colors will rush into the white sugar cube. And that's understandable because usually if you put paint near a white thing, the white thing is going to absorb the paint, right? That's an understandable thing to think. But you can see on the camera right now, those people watching the video part, you can sort of see there's like a white area around my sugar cube, and it's increasing quite substantially. You seeing the same on your place, Sandy?
Yeah, I am actually not as good as yours. I don't think I'm as expert as you, but I can see it happening. Just a bit slower than yours, but I was slow to start.
No, it's all right. It's totally doing what it needs to do. And they all, it all depends on the amount of temperature you've got with your water. And I mean, you can actually see my desk is slightly not level, so it's going that way a little bit. But more importantly, you can see the colors are being pushed outwards. And so you say to the kids, where is there more sugar? And the kids usually always say the sugar cube in the center. Sometimes I'll say the Skittles because they taste sweet. But honestly, pure sugar is sugar. The most sugar is in the middle of the plate. The least amount of sugar is on the edge of the plate. And what they're saying is a very simple yet important rule when it comes to chemistry. Stuff moves from more stuff to less stuff, using slightly better words, higher concentration to lower concentration. And we're just seeing an extremely simple version of this done on the plate, and kids love it. So easy to do. And I must say, it's kind of fun because let's be honest, the kids, well, they like it. I'm coming in blurry. Come in, come on. I've just swapped cameras if you're listening on audio. Sometimes the autofocus just struggles, so I'm going to do it manually. Fine.
I quite like it. It sort of adds to the feel of it.
It does feel like that. But yeah, that's a really, really simple one. And you might have remembered, did you ever see, I think it was on Facebook, it went viral a couple of years ago, where you put like a whole bunch of Skittles around the edge of the plate, like heaps.
Yeah.
And then you add hot water to it, like really hot. And the colors stream in like a rainbow right into the center. The kids, it blows their minds. And in that case, you're really seeing it. Most of the sugar's on the outside of the plate, and it is moving to the inside where there's not much sugar. But because it's hot, they're also seeing another effect. The more heat in a chemical experiment, the faster stuff happens. The faster the rate of reaction, if you want to get all fancy.
So how do you know this? Did you do a science degree as well? Like how do you feed your brain with all this knowledge, Ben? Apart from being an obvious genius.
A geek. A geek, yeah. No, there's no way I can take credit for that particular experiment. In fact, a lot of the experiments you see on most science education pages, including ours, are new takes on an old experiment. And the sort of things you see in journals of education, you'll see a teacher's going, hey, this is a new way to do a thing. And we repurpose it and reflavor it in our own sort of way. So, I mean, I've been doing science ed for over 20 years now. And a lot of these experiments, like that experiment we just did with the Skittles, is a couple of decades old. And it's the thing is, though, I mean, I kind of feel for teachers in every grade. There is this massive amount of information out there. And the chances of knowing it all, and there's no way I do, I'm only 20 years in. I reckon if I've got another 500 years to live, I could deal with, kind of maybe now, but there's no way we can possibly know everything. And I think that's actually an opportunity, because as educators, we're meant to be collegiate and share resources and ideas, as well as when you're in your classroom, you've got 30 minds who can also do that outsourcing for you too. They can bring back that information into you. And now you've got yourself, it's not just you being the sage on the stage, you've now got kids in that room. And
because that's the point. I think I say that to people all the time. You can't be, as a primary school teacher, you can't be an expert in everything. So,
no.
and that's why we need to lean on each other and seek each other to help us, because you can't, there's no way. So, I mean, I just, and it didn't take me long to realize that. So, and smart teachers will realize to be smart, get on with your community and share. So it's awesome. So, just out of interest, if we wanted to do something like an incursion on prac, for example, what is an incursion and how does that work for us?
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for asking. So, I mean, that's sort of what we do day to day in a lot of ways. And outside of COVID, woohoo, we get to back doing that again. All right. So, excursions for a start is the traditional way is you shove kids on a bus and you go somewhere, which is fantastic. The kids get an awesome experience, and nothing like heading out of school and doing a thing. Why incursions exist? So, rather than going out of the school, incursions are going into the school. It actually covers a couple of things. Firstly, cost of buses realistically $800 to $1,000, $1,200, and that's without the experience that you're shuffling your kids off to go do. And sometimes you're out of budget. Second reason, when you do an excursion, mind you, again, I know excursions are very important because they're the sort of thing, the memories that you build on, but they're a full day thing or a half day thing. And you kind of think about the average commute in Sydney when it's not bad traffic, is half an hour to an hour. So that's a half an hour, an hour one way. Then you do whatever it is. But the reality is when you get off the bus, you then have to, do the mark the roll. Maybe it's time for morning tea. Then you finally do whatever it is that you're visiting. Then it's time for lunch. Then it's time to maybe do a little bit more. And then you've got to leave usually the venue by about 2:00 to be back on time for bell time to send the kids home. What incursions do is almost the same amount of face-to-face time as an excursion. Only, not only the cost lower, they're now completely chop and changeable, because if you shove an incursion provider in a hall or a classroom and you rotate classes through that room for the day, there is no disruption to your timetable, period.
Yeah.
Especially when you plan ahead, right? I mean, you might have to move something out of the way if it's a school hall, but generally you can make it really quite easy. And so then the same amount of face-to-face experience is still happening on the site, without all the additional risk assessment fun of having to get kids on a bus, not having to get additional parent helpers because, hey, year 6 has gone nuts this year or something like that, like whatever it is. It drops all that down. It's still within a protected environment. They're still getting their learning experience. And it's our job is to bring stuff in that you can't get at school. It's just done within school. That's sort of what we get up to. And Fizzics runs it's like over 45 of them for primary school. And there's a bit over 20 for high school, and it's really fun designing it.
So I heard that you like slime. Are you beyond slime? That's right.
I go beyond slime. If you're listening on it, look up hashtag beyond slime. That's a thing. Slime is, and I was almost reticent to say it when you asked earlier about a weird experience with that 700 kilograms of cornflour slime and the always running around it. The thing is slime's often a go-to, is somehow that's the be-all and end-all of some form of science experience. Slime's fine. Slime's engaging. Kids love slime. We get it. Totally, it works. And in fact, there's like 20 odd different versions of slime and then some. And the thing is, though, nowadays, a lot of kids know far more than you do anyway as an educator. I mean, unless you're going into the chemistry of the slime, all you're really doing is shoving stuff into a bowl and mixing it, and now it's goopy. So I would like to see, if people want to do the slime thing, it'd be kind of fun to think, well, how can you now use the slime to do a thing? I mean, an example is, the cornflower slime, the classic oobleck. You press it, it goes hard. When you don't press it, it's not hard. So there's a similar substance that's used like that in speed bumps in Northern Europe, I believe. And the idea is that if you're driving a car through this car park, the bumps squish out of the way as your car goes past. And if you don't do the right speed, you're going too fast, bang.
That's cool. Yeah. Yeah. No, yeah, I must be, I'm teasing Ben because I know it's a running joke because I have to be honest, when I first started teaching, that's the type of thing that you would do. And there's no way I would do it now because it's just, that to me is nothing innovative about that at all. Kids can do it at home. So, and that's what your page offers. Joe, do you have any questions for? I've got one more thing to ask, Ben.
That's okay. Well,
I'm trying to think of a question. Okay. What was your epiphany that made you want to go into science, or especially science education? Was it in school or was it after school?
All right, like that question. Going into science, I reckon it would have been right at the start of life, nearly, I'd say. I just was always curious about how the world worked. Simple as that. And I love my fiction, love my non-fiction, everything else. I was always curious about all these things that happen. And so that was a very young age. So I always knew I was going to fall into science. Nearly fell into sports science, actually, because I used to do a lot of sport too. But science ended up becoming where I went. In terms of science education, before being involved in education, I was working as a bushland regenerator and was doing ecological restoration in Sydney Basin and dealing with weeds and whatnot, gardening with a chainsaw and other things. Anyway, so what became really clear and apparent was, as we were fixing areas of quite heavily weed infested areas, people would actually come up to us and abuse us, and because they thought we were destroying what was left of the habitat that was there, not understanding that what we were doing was removing some in a mosaic fashion to be able to bring in other native species that are indigenous to the area and actually improve over time, over a 10-year plan, not like a 3-week smash it and it's gone. Over a 10-year plan, actually fixing the area. I thought, well, hang on, there's clearly a disconnect between their local environment and what people are actually doing to restore it. So I figured I'd retrain as a teacher, and could easily have felt stay within teaching for a while, but I was lucky enough to be asked to join with as a group. They don't do quite this too much anymore, but the CSIRO used to run education group, a lot of outreach, a lot of the stuff that physics does now. But I mean, that got wound up a little while ago, but they're still doing education in a different way. I realized suddenly that a teacher can heavily impact deeply 20,000, 30,000 kids, whatever it is, over a lifetime, over a career, really, really, really well. But I wanted to see if I could somehow scale that knowledge to others. And so if I wind it forward, like physics over the last 17 years has worked with 2.5 million kids. I think it's probably higher than that now. We stopped counting a couple of years ago. We only know it through the bookings, and every couple of years we go to recheck it. And that's done because it's not just about me. There's 20 educators here. We're in Sydney, Brisbane, Melbourne, and Canberra. Predominantly out of Sydney and Melbourne, just because our locus was Sydney, then we moved to Melbourne next. But with a small team, when you're visiting 100 kids for the day, and you do that all week, we're like the spark that the teachers continue. There's definitely it's very much meant to be collaborative education in such a way that there's no way in that little day that we visit that we're going to be able to teach absolutely everything. It's not going to happen. But our job is to be the people that when we're left, the teacher then says, hey, remember when they did the thing? Here's what they were really going on about. And that means the kids now have a visual, auditory, kinesthetic hook onto their learning, and it works a treat.
I love it.
Do you want to tell us anything else, Ben, before I ask you the last question for the day?
No, that's right. Go ahead.
Because Ben and I, we meet on Clubhouse on Fridays with Kylie from Splat 3D, and I learn a lot from those two wise owls. Ava, who's Ava?
I just did our first one this morning. Who's Ava? I like that. The Australian Virtual Astronaut Challenge. Yes, Ava. That was a thought bubble that sort of got a roll on. All right. So firstly, if you're listening and you're wondering what Clubhouse is, go look up Clubhouse app. It exists on iPhone and Android and whatever. There is a whole bunch of education conversations that are happening live right now, even as we speak, with some really interesting educators around the globe. You can really find some interesting things.
That's awesome, isn't it? I love Clubhouse.
So the reason why I'm talking for a bit about this is to set up the scene. So I jumped into Clubhouse in February this year, 2021, and was hanging out in education rooms and just learning the lay of the land and just getting to know people. One of the people who turned up in a very small room is a very good friend of mine now, this being early October for this call, Ted Tagami, who is the co-founder of Magnitude.io out of Berkeley, California. We're chatting about his love of space and all the rest. And I found out that he was doing these projects with the International Space Station because he is the education chair of the user advisor committee for US national labs for the ISS. In this tiny little room, there's like 3 of us hanging out in this room. It's, oh, you do education with the ISS? That's cool. I'm a science educator. Roll it forward. Ted and I were talking about a month ago around the issue that Australia was so heavily locked down. And he just asked, is there anything that we can create or do that might spark some interest in their learning again, considering how much the kids have just had a tough time. I mean, we're nearly 4 months into a lockdown now. So what we decided to do was create the Australian Virtual Astronaut Challenge. We brought this to a friend of ours, Dr. Scott Sleep from the STEM Industry Schools Partnerships. And I said, Scott, do you want to try something? Anyway, we've just this is just about 5-6 hours ago. We finished off the Australian Virtual Astronaut Challenge's first week of 160 odd schools involved in this particular challenge, where it's a design challenge over 6 weeks, where they look at what's inside their home and they create what can they make grow that might be feasible to work on a space station or on the moon or on the regolith of Mars. And the idea is that we're wrapping all the design things, the ideation things that you often hear about with design thinking challenges to kids who are stuck at home using the resources they have at hand. So we have a whole bunch of guest speakers, heaps of people from NASA, Magnitude. We've got Kirsten Banks, who's an astrophysicist from Australia's Space Agency and University of Sydney, PhD candidate. Dr. Carl's popping in later on. There's a few people jumping on in to lend a hand to several thousand students now, quite a few thousand students. And that all came from, if you kind of think about it, just a conversation with 3 people in a room 7 months ago, 8 months ago now. And it's kind of cool. You never quite know just what might happen a few months or a year or 2 years from now. And so that's what that's about.
I think it's amazing. I think the whole idea of, like you're saying this morning, in your home, you're in a spaceship, really. You're traveling, so it's really logical. Actually, I think it's really clever and really engaging. I can imagine kids loving it very much, and I'm really looking forward to seeing what happens as you post around social media. So thanks for joining us today, Ben. We've really enjoyed listening to you. We know where to go to get all cool things beyond slime.
Let's go beyond slime. Why not?
Yeah. No, I actually tease Ben about it because I actually know that I go on your website and it's actually incredible what you offer. So, and you do an incredible community service for us as educators. You teach teachers how to teach. You teach kids. You make parents happy. So it's pretty cool impact, I think. So, and I do believe that you make a global impact as well. So good on you, Ben.
No, thanks so much. And if I leave one parting idea, if you are teaching science, please variable test. If we are going to do science, it's not making a recipe where you're going to create a chocolate cake because you followed the recipe step by step. What you want to get the students to do is change one thing and see the effect. That's all it is. That's actually all science is. There's a little bit more to science in some ways, but that honestly, if you just control one thing, control everything and change one thing and see if there's an effect, you are doing real science. If you're just doing a procedure where the kids have an absolute guaranteed conclusion, you're sort of there, but you just got to take that extra step and now you're doing real science. And it does not matter if there is no effect because that's still a result.
And that actually is the basis of a PhD.
Yeah.
We can change a variable. I'm not joking. That's what we do. I'm actually been writing lectures today on PhDs, how to get ready to do a PhD on research, would you believe? And it's about variables. It's just a simple thing. So you never know what seed you're planting, Ben, with kids. So thank you, Ben, for joining us. And that's it. We're done for today. Thank you.
Thank you.
Much appreciated. Thank you for having me.